everyone, so I just wanted to do a video on my approach that I would use if somebody just like gave me a chart with non-functional chords on it and asked me to solo on them. In any case, it's not something you can easily play bebop on. I think there's ways to get the sound of the chord progression into your improvisation. It could be very sort of clear and very effective musically. And most of the stuff I'm going to be talking about today is the same sort of stuff that's taught by Jordan Clements and by his teacher, Stefan Harris. And Stefan came up with his approach because he was often presented with chord charts like this, and he had to find an approach that he found musically satisfying for playing this type of music. And I just wanted to have a go at applying this today to a small part of a tune by Kurt Rosenwinkel. Okay, so the example I'm using today is just the B section of a tune called The Cross from his album Deep Song, which he recorded with Joshua Redman about, good grief, almost 20 years ago now. This is just purely an example. This isn't necessarily about how you would play Kurt Rosenwinkel's music or even how Kurt Rosenwinkel would approach it, although I think he does approach it sometimes a little bit like this, but rather it's about what tool set could you use to get yourself out of a pinch. So, we're going to look at the B section, which I've reproduced. This chart, by the way, came from Berkeley. I'll attach a link to it. There's a whole lesson on Kurt Rosenwinkel's style. I think it's about 20 years old. There's two ways we can go about it. And the first way is just to look at the chord symbols, and the second way is to use the chord symbols and the melody together. Now, in this case, actually, if you look at the tune, the chords are, as we would expect from Berklee College of Music, very good because they represent what's going on in the melody. And for this type of harmony, we want to take the melody and the chord together and get that overall tonality. That's what chord scale theory is, really. So you can see they've been very specific. Mostly the extensions add up with what's going on in the melody, and the only occasions when they don't, which are those two alt chords. I'm not a huge fan of alt as a chord symbol. I think it's a bit vague, but if you notice, the sevenths of both chords, it's the A on the B7 alt and the C on the D7 alt, both times they appear. So, it's just basically saying, well, that's a seventh, and you can do what you like for the rest of the chord. So we'll take a little bit of artistic license there, because we don't really have any extensions expressed in the melody. And obviously, I think most people would probably approach this from a chord scale point of view, and probably including Kurt, to be honest. So B7, well, B mixolydian, B alt, D7 alt, goes on a little bit longer, and then you get A7, A minor 7, sorry, flat 6, so that'd be Aeolian. And then F sharp 7, sharp minor 7, flat 6, sorry, same thing, same chord quality, same thing down to E now. And then B7. That's fine, but I feel like there's a lot of notes there. I mean, there's nothing wrong with playing a lot of notes, and Kurt Rosenwinkel certainly plays a lot of notes, but I kind of want a slightly less... I kind of want a process which doesn't involve like 7 notes on each chord, especially if we're going to be playing faster changes. So you need a strategy for dealing with those, and this will work for everything, what I'm about to show you. Another pitfall with the chord scale approach is that it's just, like if I play B7 sus4 and I play the mixolydian, I'm emphasizing the B. But actually, one thing we learned from Stefan Harris is that the characteristic notes, of course, of the chords are not, in fact, the basic root notes, the 1, 3, 5, 7 for this kind of extended jazz harmony. We really want to dig into the extensions. So actually, these have an identity in themselves. So by playing this sort of B altered or B mixolydian, whatever it is, over the B7 chord, we're kind of missing out a little bit on some of the colours that we might want to use if we're just playing the scale. Obviously, if you play patterns and things, that'll be less true. But it's an interesting point. So his approach is to use triads to get the basic sound of the extended chord, or we might call upper structure triads. So in the case of B7, you can see I take the sort of standard grip for a B7 sus4 chord. You can see that there's an A triad in there, so that's a triad we'd use. And the melody is on E, which is included within this triad. And then what Jordan and Stefan do that I like, which I think really helps me improvise with this stuff, because a triad's a little bit boring, is we'll add an intention tone. An intention tone, counterintuitively, is one of the basic chord tones of the chord. So in this case, we could use the B. We could add like a second to the A, or a ninth. And their contention is that that B actually sounds tense against that chord compared to the A, or the C sharp, which is really interesting. Your mileage may vary on that. I find it really compelling, and in fact, it's actually the expression of those notes in the upper extension of the chord as being their own thing and being resting tones in their own right, which actually gives the sound of the extended chord. It couldn't be any other way if you think about it. So let's start with that. A, add 2. It's an example of a quadratonic in Jordan's terminology. B7 alt. So we've got the A here, which is the seventh. This thing. So one triad that includes that note is the F major triad, which is the tritone substitution, of course, of B7 alt. And to that we can add in a chord tone. Let's add in the B again, so it's a sharp 4 this time. I love this arpeggio. Okay, and we can put that over the B7 alt. Yeah, so far we got this. Nice. D7 alt, we'll use the same relationship. This time it will be A flat major. So let's put those together. Nice. Okay, then we get to the A flat minor 7 flat 6. These chords do tend to sound a little bit like first inversion major add 9s to me, like major add 2s. In this case, this could be a first inversion E major. With the A flat added to it. And actually, Kurt writes things like this. For instance, in his tune Our Secret World, there's a figure that's a bit like this. I'll just find it for you. Hang on. This figure, I'm just going to transpose it. So it's like, yeah? It's got a sharp 4 there on it. It's kind of that. So you can experiment with that kind of stuff. That's just like putting an A flat open triad with a E triad on top, if that makes any sense. So like there is definitely an extent to which Kurt is thinking like this a little bit, or at least was at that point. In this case, anyway, we're going to use E major. The add 2. Then we can do the same thing down a step with the F sharp minor 7 flat 6. It's D now. Down again. So you can use the pentatonics for this, by the way, as well. That'll work fine, just like it did for the other natural 2, major add 2 chords. So for instance, this one. Let's go through it. So A flat. Yeah, nice, huh? Very pretty. Okay, then again, B7 sus 4, well that's our A again, with the 2. B7 alt. So that's with the F major with the add sharp 4. and then the A flat major. Kind of thing, right? And then, yeah. So what I'll do is I'll just pop up a quick example of me playing through these to show you how they sound. Obviously, the more you do this, the faster you'll get at it. First few times it's going to be very difficult, but over time it becomes more natural. I would definitely recommend checking out Jordan's materials online. Stephen Harris doesn't have much. He's got a couple of lectures. I think he's far too busy being a professor at New York University and playing with some of the best jazz musicians in the world to be on YouTube. So there you go. Anyway, thanks very much. Hope you find that helpful.